Welcome to Insight and Influence, a podcast presented by C&G Strategies, bringing you insightful conversations from influential people, including government officials, industry leaders, and advocates from across the state.
Welcome to Insight and Influence. I'm Rob Vescio, C&G Strategies. With me today is David Caliguiri.
Good to see you, Rob. Good to see you as well.
Brian Kennedy from the Pittsburgh Technology Council was our guest today.
Great to be seen. Thanks
for coming, Brian. We brought you in today, kind of promo what's happening within the Tech Council. You have your second annual PA Data Center Energy and Summit coming up here end of March.
Yeah, March 27th, we're hosting the Pennsylvania Data Center and Energy Innovation Summit, which is second year in a row that we've hosted it. We're expecting about 600 people, and we're going to really dig deep into the local jobs being created by the data center industry across the country and how it specifically impacts Western Pennsylvania manufacturing.
Where is it going to be held?
It'll be held at the Landing Hotel on the North Shore.
You guys sold out last year, so I'm assuming the sales are going well this year?
Well, we sold out last year in the first 6 days, so we doubled the venue this year, so we can hold up to about 600 people. We do expect to sell out again. There's a lot of interest from a lot of companies that, to be honest with you, I didn't know existed before we started delving into the data center space.
Like, who are you surprised about that wants to come and be a part of this conversation?
Well, I think probably what will surprise most people about the Data Center Summit is that we're going to spend most of the time not talking about data centers themselves.
There's only so much you could talk about, right?
Right. Yeah, well, there's a lot. If you go to most data center summits, you're going to spend a lot of time talking about water cooling and innovations in fiber optic communications in the data centers. Whereas we're in Pittsburgh, and I think just to kind of like set the stage. We're excited about data centers, but we're excited about data centers because of the jobs they're going to create, not in the data centers. And so, what's the one thing? The first thing you think about data centers, probably building. The second thing you think about data centers is got to be
energy.
Energy, right? The work is energy. And I think a lot of people in Western Pennsylvania, have come to this conclusion, smart people, by the way, that data centers don't create jobs or they don't create a lot of jobs. And they're smart, right? But they're dead wrong. And I've been exposed to that. And let's just talk about why that. So it might be true in a place like Northern Virginia, and maybe, right? But Pennsylvania is in a different place because of that word energy. And a lot of people, the next thing they think about energy are going to think,
I don't
natural
know.
Gas,
yeah, great.
Right?
Sorry.
They're going to think
nuclear,
natural gas.
See, now you're outside nuclear, my comfort zone.
Right? They're going to think about the sources of energy. And that's all true. Right? It's all true that we are the source of the fuels, we are the source of the generation, but there's a big thing that they're not connecting the dots on, which is that, a great book, by the way, if you read this, Empires of Light, and it detailed the rise of the world's electric grid that centered around, large part, Western Pennsylvania with George Westinghouse and a guy named Nikola Tesla. And at the end of the day, George Westinghouse prevailed. His idea of transmitting electric, alternating current across power lines, very long distances, and the innovations that he built to step down that power and step up that power, ended up building literally an empire that became at one point in time the largest corporation on the planet. Right before it was disassembled, very sadly, as probably many people in Pennsylvania know. But here's what didn't happen: those jobs, they never left Western PA. Right, so the Westinghouse jobs of building transformers, of building switchgear, of building in Western PA electrical grade steel, of building control rooms, automated control rooms for power facilities, of building nuclear reactors, designing nuclear reactors. That empire of lights is still here. It's not bearing the name Westinghouse, except for Westinghouse Electric, except for companies who have a little Westinghouse, homage, right? Wesco or Wabtec, Westinghouse Air Brake Corporation. But there are dozens of former Westinghouse companies right here in Pittsburgh who are experiencing growth like they haven't seen in 50 years right now. And so let's talk about just what I'm talking about, because if you look at data centers, they're demanding components that we make in abundance in Western PA. They are starving for the components. Some of these components now are on 3 and 4 year backlogs. So when you think about transformers, when you think about turbines, These are the bread and butter types of things that we've manufactured here since the George Westinghouse days. So give you some examples. I think we saw probably the last big factory expansion in Western PA or development was the
cracker plant.
The cracker plant, right?
Right.
Beaver County.
In Beaver County.
I didn't realize
Right.
this was a question and answer.
It's a question. I know.
I know.
Yeah.
So we're-
And
by the way,
and
I'm
Rob,
one for one,
Rob
you're
having
one for
some,
one.
you know,
Yeah.
Beaver County roots.
Yeah. Right.
We're outside the city, David.
Yeah. Sorry, Dave.
Sorry.
Yeah. And that's actually really important. This is a time for people outside of Allegheny County, right? So I've been with the Tech Council for a couple decades right now, and I came here for one reason. It was to promote jobs so that people in Western PA could have family-sustaining jobs and have to not ever leave this area again to get jobs and employment, or so we could stop that exodus of hundreds of thousands of Western Pennsylvania. That's why I came here. And we've been incredibly successful if you live in Allegheny County, right? The benefits of the tech sector have been largely within like a dozen miles of CMU for the most part. This moment isn't for Allegheny County. This is a moment for everyone else. So let me give you some examples of what's happening that I think people inherently know this, but they're not connecting the dots back to data centers. Mitsubishi Electric Power Products, company up right south of the Butler County line in Warrendale, in the process of building a new state-of-the-art factory in Beaver County to build some of the biggest grid-level breakers that you're going to see. These are the 2-story, 3-story tall. You might, if you're up in the Cranberry area, you might see them leaving the plant, right? In Beaver County, I think that plant is a $90 million factory that they're building. Let's talk about Hitachi Energy, which is building switchgear out in Westmoreland County. $100 million. And I think they're building more than one factory. They're actually building 2 factories in the Westmoreland County area for traditional switchgear that is in incredible demand right now due to data centers. A company called GE Vernova that some people have heard of recently because they're including their turbines in the Homer City project are building a factory, I believe, out near the airport, if I understand where the space is correctly. Look at some companies like PA Transformer, located in Washington County, that's experiencing tremendous growth. Look at a company there called Starline LeGrand. If you don't know Starline LeGrand, they deliver the final 10 yards of power, right, from inside the facility right directly into the server racks. They have, I think, close to 800 people working in Washington County, working 3 shifts. If you go to their parking lot, it is literally busting at the seams because they can't fit enough workers into their parking lot. And they are one of the number one companies that develops those internal power solutions. So just in those few companies, we're talking about thousands of jobs in Western PA. And we haven't talked, I didn't get to a company like Eaton Electric, which most people know has a great facility in Beaver County. We haven't talked about Westinghouse Electric, which is in Butler County now. $80 billion agreement they signed with the federal government to help bring 10 new nuclear reactors online. It'll be the biggest expansion.
Are those mini ones? Or are they actually
No, these are full AP1000s.
Okay.
Yeah, so the mini reactors that they make, which they call micro reactors, it's a Vinci business unit. They hold tremendous promise for data centers, but the grid is so far behind power demand right now that we don't have time for that. Right? We literally, the AP1000s that can power communities are being built for the first time at pace and scale we haven't seen for probably 7 decades in the United States, and that's going to be bringing jobs right here to Western PA in a company like Westinghouse Electric. Right next door to them is a company called Emerson Power and Water. They built, if you don't know this, half of the control rooms for nuclear power plants across the entire planet are powered by Emerson Process and Water and Power, designed right here in Western PA. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that we can talk about data centers, right? But I'm going to tell you what you already know about data centers. They're giant buildings. They've got some big-ass servers and a bunch of HVAC equipment in them. But the reality is the real jobs in Western PA, the moment for Western PA is in restoring our manufacturing community. So I like to say this is a home team advantage, right? Sure. None of the other states out there have the level of manufacturing infrastructure that we do that is so well tailored for the data center sector. So the folks that are arguing against them simply because they think they don't have jobs, please take time, learn. I know people in Western PA have a lot of great common sense. Once they understand that you're putting serious jobs in jeopardy, I think they might look at these centers a little bit differently.
Well, that's a good point, because I think at the beginning you're looking at the construction jobs that are going to take place by building the centers, and then of course the energy facilities that are with it. And then at that point, the building is up, but all the spin-off technology you're talking about and what it's going to happen is the legacy that you keep talking about from the beginning, which built our region. And that's what we're going to see moving forward with Emerson and so forth.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have heard of a company called Cleveland Cliffs, for example.
Absolutely.
And I don't think anybody would think Cleveland Cliffs is a data center company, right?
They're construction.
If I were to say Cleveland Cliffs is steel, they make electric-grade steel in Butler.
Steel.
And I mean, I don't know, David, would you think they're a data center company? But let me tell you what they make. They make grain-oriented steel. That is the only kind of steel that you can put into transformers that'll stop them from melting down as the electricity flows through them. And they're the last of the people making grain-oriented steel in North America. So they're a pivotal player in the data center economy. Transformers are one of the biggest things that are holding data center development back. We make that here. And so when you can project forward 10 years of billions and billions of dollars of energy demand hitting the grid, that allows you to build new factories. And that's exactly what's happening right now.
It's amazing. So let's get back to the conference. So what does the day look like? Who will be participating? You said you have a lot of the operators, developers, and energy companies. So you have a good mix coming to this one. And I guess you could even go back to the first one, like the difference between the first conference and this conference. We had a client that worked that first conference as well, building their data center, but it was definitely, I said, it was well attended. It was amazing who came in for it. So you're looking for kind of the same response, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so if I'm completely honest, part of the reason I've been able to stay at the Tech Council for as long as I have is I'm a curious person, right? So when I want to learn about something, I'm in a perfect nexus to do that. And I honestly admit that I actually haven't stepped foot into a hyperscale data center. Sure would like to have. But I'm in a position to basically, pull together people and have them educate me. And so that's what the first year's conference was about. It was really to educate me, right? And then me share that knowledge with our member companies about the different people involved in powering a data center. Whether it be companies like LLI Engineering that are leading the design of the data centers, or an equipment provider like Dawnwell here in Pittsburgh that provides some of the power conditioning equipment. Whether it would be the different trades, and I'd learned a tremendous amount over the last year about the trades and their business model. By the way, they're the only business model where if they're super successful, they put themselves out of a job on every project they work on. Right, every day they go to their work, they're getting closer to not having work. So this year, taking kind of the same approach, right? Really looking, I'm looking forward to attending my own summit because I'm going to learn there. So I'll talk to you about how we're going to start the day. First, we're going to start off the day by releasing a study on the indirect jobs associated with data centers. And we hope, I haven't seen the final, it could come any minute now. I'm hoping that we can make the case that Pennsylvania can see a lot more local jobs than the typical state because of our very strong bring your own power trend, right, where people are building energy generation, and because of our very strong manufacturing. In some cases, we might argue that data centers are actually indirect jobs of Pennsylvania energy, not the other way around, right? People would say the energy is an indirect job of the data center. The reality is, in Pittsburgh, so far, every single major announcement has been preceded by a company announcing a power facility, right? Not a data center and then power. All of your large projects, Homer City, the team in Greene County that's putting together a project, the team in Beaver County that's putting it. It's all led
3 Mile Island.
3 Mile Island. I mean, how exciting is that? And they do have a branding problem, and I know they have renamed it, but they mothballed a reactor. I think for 5 years it had sat completely useless. In a time where we have massive energy demand, we were shutting down nuclear power plants. I grew up a mile from the Beaver Valley reactor, which was the nation's very first commercial nuclear reactor. That one has long since been decommissioned and replaced with a newer model. It was set to go offline 2 years ago and never come back. That was what was happening in the energy industry just as recently as 2 to 3 years ago. We were shutting down all of our coal-fired generation. We were shutting down all of our nuclear generation. And we were becoming highly dependent on natural gas and renewables almost exclusively. Because of data centers, the Beaver Valley Nuclear Center is not only not shutting down, it now has an investment from a company called Vistra that's going to boost output from that facility by 20%. That's one of the companies you're going to hear from at this center. So Vistra is doing that on behalf of their client, which is Meta. You'll also be hearing from Meta at our conference, so they will be there. And that's, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of jobs in a place where if they had gone away, they would never have come back, right? So growing up, my one best friend his dad worked in the Bruce Mansfield site, which was a coal center. And my other best friend's dad worked on scheduling the outages for the nuclear power plant when it needed refueled. Both of them had, RVs and summer homes and had great sustainable, family sustaining jobs. Both of those facilities were set to be gone. Promised they were never coming back. That's why you're not hearing anybody in Beaver County griping about data centers, because they know what I'm telling you. There's no protesters showing up there.
Because the plant would have shut down.
Because these are people literally who spent their whole lives growing up with a nuclear power plant on their left side and a coal fire plant on their right side. They're not going to complain about a data center coming in there.
No.
They're just not.
So speaking of that, right? Speaking of the complaints, speaking of the folks that are opposed to data centers, are you going to address any of the negative concerns that data centers bring? Is someone going to, refute what I think is?
Yeah, first of all, we always have to listen to people, right? This is a democracy. This isn't, this is a place where we don't just. We're not China, right? We can't just say we're going to build a data center. We don't really care if you don't like it.
Right.
They get some amazing things done, I will tell you, which the Chinese do some pretty cool things by not having to take public input. But that's not America. So one of the panels that we're going to have at this summit is actually called Earning Your Welcome. The people who've been doing data centers the longest know they don't want to go where they're not wanted. They're not going to force their way in. And I think the message is going to be that you're going to hear from that panel is that the local governments have all the power. They have all of the decision making. They set the ordinances, they set the rules, they set the setbacks. They're in charge, right? So, and we very much want them to know that. The centers are not going to come in and force their way into an area. Right. We heard one local governing body here in Western PA, make a statement that, we didn't really want this data center, but we had to because they would have sued us. Let me translate. They followed all the rules.
Right.
You set all the rules, and they said, we'll abide by all those rules, right? And that's where we need to get to. And we need to have very common sense rules to protect the public. There are concerns about noise. Of course there are concerns about noise. But let's be honest about what we're doing with data centers in Western PA, because that's also pretty different than, say, Northern Virginia. Data centers in Western PA are a story of reuse, right? So you can look out your window and see Nova Place from here. But people might not know Nova Place is actually the largest data center in the city of Pittsburgh, right?
People don't even know it's here.
And people don't know that Nova Place actually powers every data center in Western Pennsylvania with fiber. So that is the termination point of all fiber in Western PA. So whether you're talking about Iron Mountain, which is in Boyers, Pennsylvania, it's an hour drive north, that's got dual redundant fiber lines coming to Nova Place. And so that's why Nova Place, let me just say for your listeners, Nova Place is the Allegheny Center Mall, which we will probably get away with calling that for another 50 years. The Allegheny Center Mall was one of the very first malls to fail, right? And I think if you see what happens to malls that fail, they can become very expensive eyesores in the community, and someone ultimately has to fund their demolition and their reuse. Here we had a New York investor come in and buy Nova Place, and has made it into one of the largest data centers. And so instead of having to tear down a mall and tear down the 5,000 car garage that it has beneath it, we actually have fully filled up that building, mostly with data centers, but those data centers also brought another tech economy with them. So you saw offices like Oracle and Gecko Robotics and Castle Biosciences, and now the headquarters of Duquesne Light is moving there. So we are co-locating with data centers. And let me tell you, if you come and visit with me, I will have to insist to you that there are data centers in the building, because you won't believe it, because you won't hear any noise. You won't hear any noise.
You don't feel the heat.
You're not going to see any water boiling off the top.
Yeah,
we're not boiling millions of gallons of water like people falsely try to claim. They have diesel every data center in the building has massive Caterpillar diesel generator sets that they have to run every single month. I've never heard it. I do hear the people dropping weights on the floor in the office next to me, right? There's a gym next door, and I can hear those weights. But, there are some myths out there about data centers that you can dispel pretty quickly simply by taking people to visit them. And so that's what we did last year as part of last year's conference. We actually kicked off the conference in our office and took a pretty large group of people downstairs to visit the Expedient Data Center, which is one of the more advanced local data centers. And I think one of the things I learned is when the end of the world comes, like when the end of the world truly comes, you want to find a data center. They got a lot of water, they got a lot of power, they got a lot of heat, right? They got great security, they got cameras everywhere. You're not getting in, right? So when the end of the world forgets those bunkers in your backyard, find a data center, get there quick.
So you said you're starting off with a study at the conference. What's the panelists after that?
So starting off with the study and hopefully setting that tone that there are thousands of jobs here in Western PA. We're waiting on the science. This is not going to be our opinion.
Right.
First, I think the very first panel of the day is called Empire of Lights. We build it here. And so you'll be hearing from Hitachi Energy, Eaton. You'll be hearing from...
So these are all local companies that already are in this space.
These are all these local companies that are building factories. So you're going to hear from companies that a lot of people they're not household names because they don't sell consumer-grade products. But they are building factories. Mitsubishi Electric Products will be on that panel. We'll have a couple other manufacturers not on the panel that we're going to give a shout out to because there's literally so many people building factories to build equipment for the power grid right now. I don't have room for them on the panel, right? Like you have a 5-person, you get 7 or 8 people on a panel, and you can't talk. So we're going to give a couple shout outs because there are some people that are building factories that aren't even announced yet here in Western PA. So definitely going to give a shout out for that. The next panel is going to focus on the power of data centers.
Okay.
So, this is going to be more on the energy generation side of the house. So we're going to have a company called Brookfield. Brookfield recently announced a $2 billion hydroelectric plan here in Pennsylvania on behalf of Google. And so they'll be here. And incidentally, they are a company that most of us don't know we know because they own Westinghouse Electric. So this is the parent company for Westinghouse Electric. They are not strangers to renewable energy and zero carbon energy. This is what they do, and they have multiple projects going on, creating jobs across Western PA. We're also, as I mentioned, Vistra, which is the company that is doing the nuclear in Beaver County. We're going to host a good friend of mine, a gentleman named Jim Spencer, and Jim was a pioneer for wind power. Here in Western Pennsylvania, and if you've driven the turnpike and you've looked, and you've seen, the wind turbines there, chances are his former company built those wind turbines. Today, Jim is also working on in the space of reusing old, potentially coal facilities. He's in the business of grid stabilization through battery storage, and he's in the solar space. So we're going to hear, and let's just also start there. There's no better customer. No better customer for renewable energy than data centers. You go so far as this: if there were no data centers in the United States, there would be no renewable energy industry in the United States.
Really?
They are the largest voluntary customers of renewable energy, and they will buy every kilowatt they possibly can buy that's renewable.
See, that's interesting to note that, again, you talked about this from the very beginning, that this is, energy is a huge component of data centers, but nobody really thinks about the renewable part.
Yeah, I mean, this is so when we were working with Governor Wolf at the time to remove some barriers to data center development, Jim Spencer was my best ally. Jim was able to pick up the governor and explain it to him. We haven't had an enterprise at that point in time when we were taxing equipment that goes into data centers, which 35 states do not do. When we were doing that, we hadn't had an enterprise level data center built in Pennsylvania in over a decade, right? So no data centers in over a decade. So I hate to give like the protesters like an easy way to kill data centers, but an easy way to kill data centers is to tax equipment that's going into them. And that tax exemption, by the way, is not something special. Like if you go to Home Depot and you buy cabinets for your house that are going to be installed in your house, they're tax-free, right? If you buy cabinets for a data center, they're tax-free as well. And 35 states did that. Because we were taxing them, no one would come here. And now that we are taxing them, we're now the 4th largest state in America for newly announced data center, now that we've removed that barrier. But let me go back to the partnership with Jim. Jim was able to get on the phone with the governor and explain to him, data centers are the absolute best customer of renewables. They're going to buy every kilowatt you can produce with solar, every kilowatt you can do with hydro, every kilowatt you can do with wind. The reality is there's just not enough of it, right? And so these people who very much believe in renewables, but at the end of the day, they also believe in serving their clients too. So that's also why we're seeing a surge in things like natural gas powered turbines, which are exponentially cleaner than what they're replacing. right?
That's incredible.
All across Western PA, these are being built at former coal facilities, right?
So
these
we're
are
using everything. Yeah.
So they're using up all the coal facilities, taking advantage of their connection to the PJM power grid, and they're replacing coal power with sources of energy that are exponentially cleaner and safer and healthier for the people of Pennsylvania.
Well, it sounds like a great conference. We have just a little bit of time left. How are you going to end the conference, and what do you want people to leave with, I guess? What's the end game here? And of course, I'm assuming this is the second annual, and I'm sure there'll be a third and a fourth.
Yeah, I want people to leave knowing that data centers are the home team advantage for Pittsburgh.
Nice.
Right? If you want to see, if you believe that the future of Pittsburgh involves manufacturing, that you understand that there is an incredibly strong correlation between data center growth and development and Pennsylvania manufacturing. I want people to walk out the door and be able to tell that story just as clearly as I did today.
Well, where can our listeners learn more about the Pittsburgh Technology Council, and I guess specifically the summit?
Yeah, so Google Pennsylvania Data Center Energy Innovation Summit 2026. Don't land on the 2025 page, and sign up. We like I said, we do expect this event to sell out, so get registered soon. And also encourage us. This is not the only thing that we do. So the data center event is one aspect, but we also have created something called the Data Center Supplier Forums. So if you're a manufacturer, you can come out and regularly get connected to some of these companies that we've been telling you about and learn how you can service a subcontractor to them. We also have created something called Whiskey and Watts, which is a networking group so that you can gain intelligence on the next big project. You just
had your first one? Is that what?
Second one.
Second one? Okay.
Yeah. We'll have to make sure to attend the third one.
Come to the third one.
Well, Brian, we appreciate your time on Insight and Influence. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was really insightful.
And good luck with the conference. Looking forward to seeing it.
Thanks for hosting me. If you want to learn more about the Pittsburgh Technology Council, come to our website at pghtech.org.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Insight and Influence. To learn more about C&G strategies and to access previous editions, visit our website at cgstrategiespa.com.